To a truly revolutionary episode of QI. Rising up in revolt this week, we have 4 recalcitrant renegades, the Radicals, Susan Calman. The rebellious Jessica Fostekew. The rabble-rousing Gyles Brandreth. And he's an absolute riot, it's Alan Davis. Buzzers are really revolutionary. Susan goes.
Nice.
Jessica goes.
Yeah.
Like that?
That's
I think
a banger.
that's rather fine. Gyles, a bit of a headbanger, maybe.
I recognise this. It's one of my favourites. It's the Sex Pistols.
Yes.
And once in the 1980s, I met... It's true, I met Johnny Rotten.
Did you?
At the Midland Hotel, Manchester. I went up to him and I said, "Oh, Mr. Rotten, I'm so delighted to meet you." And he said to me, "Fuck off."
There's literally nothing I could say to you. You wouldn't have an anecdote. Alan goes. Here's question 1. Stop me when you know what these names are for. OK. Patriotic Shortener, Silence Mill, Regretful... Yes, Jess!
Silence Mills, the nickname I gave to my worst ever Edinburgh show.
I hate that. It's like tumbleweed, isn't it?
We punks will remember a band called Silence Mill.
OK.
Charlie Seesaw, that could be a racehorse.
I like the necktie of Capet.
They all sound like ailments or afflictions.
OK, so I'm going to help you that we have translated all of these. They were originally in French. And there was a sound effect that went with each one of them.
Guillotine.
Yeah.
Guillotine.
Guillotine.
Guillotine. I don't want to not get the point on a matter of admin.
So in French, they were absolutely fantastic. The patriotic shortener was Raccourcement Patriotique, Silence Mill Moulin à Silence, and the regretful climb Mont à Regret. All nicknames for the guillotine used in the French Revolution. Yes, you met the man who invented... I remember it well. I was in Paris.
He told me to fuck off.
I do have a personal interest in the subject as it happens.
Oh, why is that, my
But
darling?
before I get to that...
Yes.
Let me tell you what little I know about the guillotine.
The guillotine.
Le guillotine.
Yes.
Do we get bonus points for this information, or am I just wasting time? My recollection is...
Yes. But we're going back a bit. It's the French Revolution.
It's the French Revolution. It's the French Revolution. That when I was at university, one of my subjects was the French Revolution.
Oh, right.
And as I remember, the guillotine was named after a man called Guillotine, and he wanted a nicer way of killing the enemies of the revolution.
Right.
And so he was actually meaning it in a kind way.
Yeah.
So I think that's who Guillotine was.
Yeah.
But I know it went on for years and years and years, because in 1977, I went to Paris for the last use of the guillotine.
And this is your personal interest?
I was a campaigner against capital punishment. I went with a group, because we couldn't believe it, to protest.
Right.
This was still going on.
I know. What, did you have T-shirts that said, "Quit while you're ahead"?
I was at university in the 1960s, so this is a long time ago, but in 1968, obviously, I was in Paris trying to foment, in my pre-punk period,
Yes.
the revolution in France at the time.
When I was at university, I was simply trying to get laid. I'll be very honest. I wore lots of corduroy and tried to look intelligent. But sadly, the ruse did not work.
Corduroy, that'll do it for you. I had one of those sweaters with leather patches on
Oh,
the
nice.
elbows, a little pipe. I thought it looked good. Anyway, so it was named after Dr. Guillotine, and in fact, his family hated this association with the name, and they constantly petitioned the French government saying, please call it something else, please call it something else. And in the end, they changed their name because they got so fed up with it.
Perhaps it was Gillette.
Yes. There is a rumour that he was killed by his own apparatus. It is not true. In fact, he died from an infection on a carbuncle on his shoulder. So I know that.
What's a carbuncle?
It's not pleasant. Don't get one.
Well, a nice carbuncle at the end of the night, though, that can warm you up.
That's possibly the most tragic thing you've ever said.
Got to lift home, we can have a carbuncle.
Oh, yeah.
I hear you're trying to get laid, is that right?
So the person who did the very first guillotining, he was Louis XVI's executioner. He was a man by the name of Gyles Henri Sanson. He was the fourth out of 6 generations of executioner. He executed nearly 3,000 people. He was a celebrity because he was France's executioner. And his uniform that he used to wear, which was sort of striped trousers and fancy hat and an overcoat, became a very fashionable look for men. What do you think women might have worn to celebrate?
Corduroy.
Women wore guillotine-shaped earrings. And what sort of unpleasant? That's the king and queen's head below.
Oh.
That's weird, right?
I think I might quite like them.
Yeah. They do well at Topshop.
Yeah. Anyway, he was supposed to pass on the job to his eldest son, Gabriel. Gabriel died, unfortunately, while he was helping his father with an execution. He slipped on some blood and fell off the scaffold.
Oh.
They didn't feature any of this in Carry On, Up the French Revolution. A wonderful film with Kenneth Williams
That
as
was
Le Grand
marvellous.
Fromage.
Yes.
From oh, I want to watch that again now. You never see them anymore. They used to be on all the time.
No, they're on ITV2. If you watch television in the afternoon, if you've got no job, self-employed, sorry, if you're self-employed...
They do some wonderful programmes.
Do they?
And I do the voiceover for one of the commercials.
Oh, well, it's worth watching just
Yes,
for that.
it is. It's actually... I love doing it. I'm the voice now of the Tenor Flex Plus Super Soft Incontinence Pad.
Someone's got to do it, Giles.
It tells us something about the ITV2 audience, I think.
Yes.
And the joy is you can watch all the Carry On films right through the afternoon and evening without needing to leave the sofa.
Who is the woman associated with the French Revolution?
Madame Tussaud, because she took facial masks, didn't she? Death masks of the people.
It's an extraordinary story because she was the art teacher and indeed a waxworks modeller for the sister of Louis XVI. And so she was seen to be a royalist and her head was actually shaved in preparation for execution. And she was saved by a leading revolutionary who had been friendly with her before. And she was made to do the people's likenesses. And then she was asked to come to Britain to show them and was going to go back to France but had to stay because the Napoleonic Wars started and she wasn't able to return.
Who are these two?
So this is the King and Queen.
Those are actually the King and Queen of France.
It's Marie Antoinette and the King, yeah.
Or the waxworks of them.
The waxworks of them.
Now, Giles, I thought when you said you have personal experience of this that you were going to mention
going to mention.
family connection.
This, seriously, is how I became really interested in this subject of the guillotine and executions. Because my forebear, Jeremiah Brandreth, was a revolutionary and the last person to be beheaded in this country for treason.
I think we have a picture, actually, of Jeremiah.
There he is.
Part of the Pentrick Martyrs.
1817. He was a revolutionary. He began as a Luddite. He realised that the Industrial Revolution was going to make people lose their jobs. He was determined to overthrow the government of the day. And anyway, he led this revolution up in Derbyshire. He was known as the Nottingham Captain and was arrested, put on trial, and was not just hanged, but he was then beheaded because he was a traitor.
Because they wanted to show the head. I mean, I think he was already dead by the time he was beheaded. Now, we were trying to see the family likeness in this, so we've done a little bit of photoshopping just to see how that would look. So there you are.
Uncanny.
Uncanny. I do think, darling, if you were ever beheaded, just as they lifted the head up, you'd be going, I've got one more story.
It's you know, the head can live on for another 15 seconds.
Now, what would you have to do if someone read you the Riot Act?
It's an actual thing. They would go to the scene and read the Riot Act.
They literally read it out. Technically, you had an hour to disperse.
Right.
Once it had been read out. So it was introduced in 1715.
To clear crowds.
To clear the crowds out. These are the actual words of the Riot Act. And it meant that if more than 12 people gathered and were disruptive, a policeman was entitled to read them the Riot Act. And it had to be read with the exact correct wording. And after that, they had a full hour. You've got an hour now to stop rioting, which I quite like. It's very British, isn't it? I'm giving you notice, and then you'll be on the naughty step. We don't have it anymore. It was repealed by the Criminal Law Act of 1967. In fact, the last attempted reading of the Riot Act was in, have a guess, anybody? Which city in this country?
Manchester.
Glasgow.
Oh.
1919, but the policeman couldn't get through it before somebody took the page from his hand.
Sorry, Sandy. Everyone just stop. Was that a Scottish accent you just...
No, it was an Irishman visiting.
To be fair, I respect the law as much as the next person.
Yes.
If I had decided I was going to make the positive action of rioting and someone stood in front of me and said, here's a piece of paper about why you can't riot, you would just go, well, I'm taking that piece of paper. I'm a rioter, wouldn't you? I mean, and I don't think that's particularly Glasgow. If I may, Alan. If I may, Alan.
Order in the court.
But if they don't disperse, they don't just go, oh, they haven't.
Yeah. Oh.
They
What I was going to say...
He's right. You
was
could use
contrary
lethal force.
to sometimes, occasionally, when you said, and I knew you were going to say Glasgow because you looked at me with that look, you look at Sandra, you look at me sometimes and go,
Sandra.
there's a Scottish thing coming up. Just because it was Glasgow does not mean that they were violent in
No, I
removing
didn't
the
say that.
paper.
I never
They
said
simply
that.
politely went, I'll take that from you, young sir.
Yes.
I imagine. Said, excuse me, officer, can I take that?
I'll take
from
that. Would you like a mint?
Exactly. So I don't want there to be any suggestion that the glass
nobody was
victims were
suggesting.
aggressive.
But
Excuse me!
Nowadays, you don't have to read anything out at all. If 12 people or more are present and they cause any kind of violence, then...
It's quite challenging for middle-class people to start riots, as I've discovered.
Well, you've got to wait in. You've got to wait in for your white company order. I mean... There's an awful lot to do.
Yeah.
In Paris, when I was trying to take part in the 1968 riots, we didn't know what to do. And, well, no, we didn't, because we were nice university people. We'd gone over to help with the rioting.
And they were instructing in French.
Well, I was studying the French Revolution, so my French was reasonably OK. And they advised us what we were to do. And it was to knock the policeman's hat off. And apparently, knocking hats off goes back hundreds of years as the way riots are started.
I think, to be fair, if I had gone to the effort of wearing one of my hats, of which I have many, because I believe a lady with a hat is a very astonishing figure.
Is it made of corduroy?
The list of impediments to you getting shagged goes on.
It's not good, is it?
A suit a hat. Like a suit a hat, and sometimes you think, it's a hat day. I feel like wearing a hat. I'm going to wear a cowboy hat. I'm going to wear a top hat. I'm going to wear a bowler hat. And you're walking down the street, you're thinking, people are laughing at me. But I don't care. In myself, I have the confidence. I've worked on myself a lot. This is how I feel. I feel confident. I'm a powerful woman. I'm Claire Balding.
People looking for...
I'm there.
Look at, how's that
And then
cowboy hat moving by itself? How's it getting down the street? There must be a dog under there, a tiny dog. That dog's never going to get shagged wearing that.
OK. We're moving on. We are moving on. Now, here's another kind of revolution. Why doesn't your house have revolving doors? Yes, my darling Gyles.
My house does have a revolving door. It always has. It's a family house. It's a tradition.
Yes.
Because one of my forebears invented the revolving door.
I happen to know who invented the revolving door?
Theophilus
Yes, Van Cannel. Is that...
Who married the daughter of my great-great-great-grandfather, a man called Dr. Benjamin Brandreth, who invented Brandreth's pills, was a pioneer of medicine and advertising in 19th century
It's not so much
America.
a family tree as a family fucking forest.
You're related to Theophilus Van Cannel,
Of course
the
he
inventor.
is.
Dr. Brandreth had 13 children, including 10 daughters.
Yeah.
And he was hugely wealthy, and he married them off very well. He also was a friend of P.T. Barnum, who was a friend of this man who invented the revolving door. So at home, the point is,
Yes.
we love it. It's been so useful recently. You know, we only want to self-isolate. We
Yeah.
can have 3 of the family actually in the door.
Is the reason we don't have them on our homes because of too many terrible pet deaths?
No, it's just the house isn't big enough and we don't get that many visitors. They're very good in a tall building because what they do is they let much less air into the building and it avoids what's called the chimney effect. So what happens is cold air can be sucked in at the bottom when a door opens and warm air rises up through the building, and the use of a revolving door stops that. It's also more energy efficient. But weirdly, people tend to prefer to use a swing door when they can. They don't seem to like
I like
them.
to use revolving doors and pretend to be Wonder Woman. Because that's a change sometimes, and Superman did the same thing. And sometimes if you're feeling fancy when I'm in London where there's more revolving doors available, I'll just go in a building and then come back out and pretend to be Wonder Woman. I'll just do it. What I have to do is it's because I carry a suitcase with me all the time and I trip over the suitcase. That's the problem. I've got a suitcase that's bigger than me and it makes revolving doors quite difficult. But you just have to do it because then people look at you like you can't do a door.
Why don't you get out of the suitcase?
Yeah.
Carry it through the door and then
Yeah,
get back
much
in.
better.
Or get 2 little leg holes cut. How's that suitcase moving along the road?
Now, for a question about roulette. OK, I will give you 10 points to gamble on the next roll of this wheel. I can tell you that these are all black. These are the last ones that have come up, the last 5. What would you bet on now? Would you bet on black or red?
I think it doesn't matter.
That is correct. So why do you think that is? A lot of people would say red.
There's some gambler's fallacy, isn't
There's
there?
such a
There's some kind of gambler's myth.
Yeah.
I grew up spending a lot of time standing outside Ladbrokes waiting for my dad on a Saturday morning. But there's a gambler's myth that if you've lost a certain number of times, you must be due a win.
Yeah.
But actually, whether it's black or red or whatever, what's gone before bears no relationship
No,
to
it doesn't,
the probability of what's going to happen next.
It's new every time, is it?
It's-
Well,
yeah.
the wheel doesn't remember what it did before,
Yeah.
so it's 50-50. It's red or it's going to be red or black. But
that then suggests, Sandy, I may as well not wear my lucky pants. if I'm doing something.
Give up.
No, today, for example, Andy, because I enjoy QI and I want to do well to impress you, I'm wearing my lucky pants.
Right.
If what you're saying is correct, about the fact nothing matters, I may as well not bother wearing these pants that I've had for 20 years.
I can't believe that the lucky pant fallacy has finally come clear to you.
And I think corduroy against the screen is right.
Yes. You don't need pants, do you, Giles? Not at all. I'm afraid it is pretty much a 50-50 bet.
Does it matter?
No, I'm so sorry. Although it's not quite a 50-50 bet because there is also a 0, and that is how they actually make their money in the casinos. But you're absolutely right, darling, the gambler's fallacy. If the wheel has landed on black 6 times, 85% of people will bet on red.
I'm not allowed in casinos. Can I tell you why I'm not allowed in casinos?
You can't see over the table.
No, it's not.
You keep falling into the roulette wheel.
I went on a...
How's that Stetson going round and round and round that wheel?
It was my first time in a casino, like a proper casino. I had a credit card for the first time, and I ran up £10,000 in 6 hours.
No.
I mean, I was very young and I was very stupid and I was quite drunk. And after that, I decided I liked it so much I would never go back into one again because I loved every single second. They gave me lobster, they gave me beer. I thought it was amazing.
Wow.
I've only once played roulette, and in extraordinary circumstance. It was quite recently. My wife and I went for a wedding anniversary to Barbados. We were on the beach, sun was setting, wonderful golden sand, and this little old wizened lady came teetering along the beach towards us, and it wasn't until she got to about here that we realised it was actually Mick Jagger. This is a true story. And it turned out he was a really enthusiastic viewer of Countdown, so he knew who I was. And I obviously knew who he was, and my wife was quite excited. So anyway, we went off for the evening, and we went to a casino with Mick Jagger, and he very sweetly gave us the chips. And of course, we lost, but it didn't seem to bother him, which was fantastic.
That's amazing.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Right. What's so un-British about a roundabout? Yes, darling.
It's French.
Yes.
Ah.
You will
French.
not be surprised to know that is a family story.
Yes, Charles.
One of my forebears was married to the Emperor Napoleon III of France, OK? The Emperor Napoleon III of France, in exile, lived in Southport. And this is true. And when he got back to Paris, when he was restored to become the head of, become Napoleon III again, he decided that Paris needed to be redesigned and chose a man called Haussmann to do it.
Yes, from whom we get Boulevard Haussmann and all those wonderful boulevards in Paris.
And he said, the design I would like is I've been in England in a place called Southport, and I would like it to look like Southport with these wide boulevards and these big circles. And that is why Paris looks like Southport.
Yes, but the actual roundabout was the invention of a French town planner who was called Eugénie Hénard at the turn of the 20th century.
Haussmann had lots of people working for him, and...
Sorry, earlier, before the start of the show, Gyles told me that my key card for my dressing room would also work on the tube. Is that true?
I mean, so Haussmann did do a marvellous job in making the big boulevards, but the actual, what's called a carrefour giratoire, the roundabout, was a French town planner who otherwise is, I think, not really known. And so in 1907, British researchers were sent to observe it, and they copied it, and they installed the very first... Yes, darling?
You're going to find this almost impossible to believe. My father, this is getting really close now.
Yes.
My father was the legal advisor to the Automobile Association.
Right.
And a friend of Ernest Marples, who was the transport minister in the 1950s or 60s. My father went with Ernest Marples to help him open Britain's first roundabout in Letchworth, Newtown.
You are absolutely right.
Thank you. Thank you. True.
I totally love this.
good.
So there's the Arc de Triomphe, which inspired Letchworth's...
Can you see the red car? This is my dad.
Now, it's time to take a turn for the worse as we enter the head-spinning round that we call General Ignorance. Fast as we can, please. Fingers on buzzers. What can you put on your fish and chips in a chippy? Yeah.
Salt and vinegar.
No. Not salt and vinegar. Salt, yes, but not vinegar, because it's not vinegar. It's all labelled non-brewed condiment. By law, not only can it not be labelled as vinegar, you can't even put it in a receptacle that would usually hold vinegar.
Sorry, could you start...
Tell that to her on the right. You'll have me.
It's not vinegar. vinegar.
It's not vinegar.
No, it's a combination of water and ethanoic acid and flavourings, and then it's watered down even further to be served to customers. It's cheaper, it takes less time to make, you can buy it in concentrated form.
And it's lovely... You have salt and sauce, do you?
No.
What is the sauce in the salt and sauce?
No, in Edinburgh they have salt and sauce. In Glasgow we have salt and vinegar because we're classy.
But you don't. What you actually have is salt and non-brewed condiment.
You saying that all the bottles of vinegar I've ever owned never said vinegar on them?
No, if you buy it in a shop and it says vinegar in it, it is vinegar. If you say to the fish and chip person, please could you put vinegar on it, it isn't vinegar. It is, in fact, non-brewed condiment, but weirdly, people don't order it like that.
Well, they do from now on.
I know. If you ask for vinegar on your fish and chips, you probably won't get it. Who invented the battle technique of blitzkrieg? Yes.
Someone Gyles is related to.
No.
Blitzkrieg Brandreth.
The Wehrmacht German army.
The Germans. No.
The French.
Russians.
Russians.
British.
British.
It was us. It
Yes,
was us, pretty
it's
much. It was us.
We named it.
So it is a German word, Blitz, lightning and Krieg, war. Very rarely used in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Definitely not used by the German leaders when the Blitzkrieg actually happened, when they invaded Poland in 1939, France in 1941. In fact, Hitler called it a completely idiotic word, ein ganz blödsinniger Wort. It's not often I quote Hitler. In fact, the Germans, the success of the Blitzkrieg completely surprised them. They thought it was rather a miracle. But it wasn't any new innovation. So what happens is there are short, sharp attacks on the ground with armoured vehicles, and then the air support comes in behind and kind of finishes things off.
Lots of tanks and lots of peaceful, undefended villages.
That's it. But this kind of tank and aircraft warfare it had been evolving since World War I, so it was not really a new thing. But the British and American press, they decided the advance by the Germans, which surprised everybody, including the Germans, had to be a revolutionary new kind of warfare. So they claimed that the man in charge of commanding the mechanised troops, General Heinz Guderian, was the father of the Blitzkrieg. And so lots of publicity in the press, and in the end, the soldiers on the ground were using it. But it was not a German invention at all. It was... Now, what goes around comes around, and so we're back to revolutions. In which month do Russians celebrate this revolution? Yes.
October.
So it is called the October Revolution, you're absolutely right, but it isn't celebrated in October, it's celebrated in November. Why might that be?
Because it's my birthday and everyone has a party on my birthday.
Oh, did they shift the calendar?
They did shift the calendar, that's exactly it. So Russia was still using the Julian calendar, which was 13 days behind. The Bolsheviks under Lenin revolted on October the 24th and 25th, but it was, according to the rest of Europe, November the 6th and 7th.
That's my birthday, November the 6th.
Is it?
Yeah.
Lenin, Lenin would have been so pleased.
Is that...
And with these revolutionary revelations, we come to the final scores. I can tell you, in last place with minus 14, it's Alan. In third place with 3 points, Susan.
Oh, yeah! Come on!
In second place with 4 points, Jessica. And with 5 points in first place because he is related to the man who invented first place. Giles! To our guests, Jessica, Giles, Susan and Alan. I leave you with these words from American actress Lee Grant, which expose the real problem with revolutionary ideas. I've been married to one Marxist and one fascist, and neither one would take the garbage out. Thank you and good night.